Well, welcome. Thank you all for coming. For those who are just attending this event, this is your first event of the conference. Welcome to the 2016 Fierté Canada Pride and InterPride Region 7 Annual Conference and AGM. Thank you all for coming. For those who maybe don't know what Fierté Canada Pride is, I do just want to mention it's a membership organization that represents prides across Canada, coast to coast. Fierté Canada Pride is one region of InterPride. So when you see the InterPride logo everywhere, we are Region 7 of InterPride, and I believe there are 20 regions in InterPride. So we're very excited to have over 16 prides from Canada here represented. We also have the UFCW Union, the 519, as well as local media are here today. We have some councillors in the room, and of course our very special guests, the Honorable Kathleen Wynne, Premier of Ontario, and His Worship Mayor Matt Brown. So to kick things off, I'm very, very excited to introduce this individual. I think we all maybe saw some research come out over the last couple months that was released about the importance of openly gay and openly LGBT identified leaders and the importance of that for our youth specifically. And so when we were putting this conference together, we thought there's one very distinguished leader that we need to bring in and to speak to this group about that. And I really, please give a warm welcome to, again, the Honorable Kathleen Wynne, Premier of Ontario.
Thank you, Andrew. And I'm going to get water because I know I'm going to cough. So I'm just going to grab some water. And now I've spilled it all over your table. Sorry. Thank you so much, and thank you for welcoming me here today. It's a great pleasure. It's great to be back in London. Your worship, thank you, and councillors, and all of you from all over the country. And I think there's somebody here from Boston. Is that true? Hi. Welcome. It's great to have you. It's great to have you all here, and. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to talk with you. I hope we'll have a chance to have a bit of exchange with you after I've made my remarks. You know, I've been Premier for 3 years, and in that time I've spoken at hundreds of events and I've given keynote speeches, but I've never given a keynote on Pride. So I'm excited about that. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So I'm going to start, as I do, by showing my respect for the long history of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples in Ontario, and with the acknowledgement that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Munsee Delaware peoples. I start this way, and I'll come back to Indigenous peoples in a few moments, because it's related to a question that I want to ask. And I hope my answer to that question, which will give you a better sense of who I am and the sort of government that I lead, and why I put so much value on each of you and what you're doing for your communities as Pride organizers. And the question is, why do we need Pride? Now, you know, I know that may seem like a bit of a lob, but we all know the answers to this question, and it's why we're here. Pride is fundamentally a celebration of love and an assertion that no matter who we love or how we identify, we have a right to be respected and we have a right to be treated equally. And during my lifetime, the prides that all of you organize across Canada have really marched our rights into the center of Canada's national discourse and have moved us forward. The progress that we've made and the difference it has made in people's lives is nothing short of remarkable. And it only happens because we organize and we take one step at a time. And I'm going to speak about London specifically in a moment, but I want to just give you a short personal story here, something that has happened in the last couple of days and has brought this issue to the forefront for me. A very close friend of mine has died over the last 2 days, and she was born in 1938, and she lived in Saskatchewan. And I am very convinced that had she been able to come out in Saskatchewan when she was a young person, had she been able to not be afraid that she was going to be marginalized, that her family would be marginalized, she would have stayed in Saskatchewan. She would have been a member of their provincial legislature. She might have been their premier. But she didn't have that opportunity. From her perspective, she had to leave. She had to go somewhere where she didn't have networks. She got involved politically, and she was a force. But the disconnect with her early life and her inability to follow the trajectory that might have led her to where she wanted to go was that disconnect was rooted in homophobia. And so that's not that long ago. She was a half generation older than me. So there are lots of reasons for pride, and every single one of us could tell a story like that about why it's so important, hi Susan, that we keep this work going. So here in London, for example, in 1995, as many of you know, the mayor's refusal to issue a gay pride proclamation prompted Pride London's precursor, HALO, Homophile Association of London, Ontario, to take it a step further. And HALO took its case to the Ontario Human Rights Commission, where it determined that the mayor had discriminated against them in the provision of a municipal service. And it was one of thousands of steps that have brought us to where we are today. But we have a way to go, so we still need pride. And that's why I'm going to try to come at the question of why we need pride a little differently and answer it from my perspective as Premier of the province. So first, to become Premier, I had to get into politics. There's no other way to do that. And I became politically active in the 90s when the term identity politics was really in its heyday. I also came out in the 90s when I was in my 30s. Took me a while. I was 37, but I got there. But coming out and coming into public life were both journeys of empowerment. They were parallel tracks for me. And this speaks to my central point today, which is about what we do with empowerment, how it changes us, and how we change the world, and how we organize in order to do that. I put it to you today that we need pride not just for the LGBTQ2S community. We need pride because pride has the unique capacity to bring all of society along on this journey toward equality and empowerment. In short, pride builds a better world for everyone, not just for all of us, but for everyone. La fierté, c'est de construire un monde meilleur pour tous. I mentioned identity politics. Pride is identity politics, an inherently political movement that originates out of our identities as minorities and our basic right to equality. We're here, we're queer, get over it. Pride is a unique form of identity politics, though, because the spectrum of gender and sexual orientation included within pride crosses all other forms and definitions of identity. We're people of every race, gender, nationality, age, income, socioeconomic group, religion, ability, and political philosophy. We're mums and dads and grandmoms and dog lovers and cat lovers and cyclists and drivers, and the list goes on. So we defy and embrace the precepts of identity politics all at the same time. And I see this as having helped our movement to actually gain enormous ground. Nowhere is this on more public display than at Pride festivals and parades, when the whole public can see themselves represented among our ranks. And little by little, this is one way that Pride has chipped away at the prejudices, at those barriers. In the political sphere, the breakthrough happened when gay men finally became electable, as we would expect in a patriarchal society. In 1998, my Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, Glenn Murray, yes, he's a wonderful guy, your member, I believe, yes, he was elected as the first openly gay mayor of a big North American city in Winnipeg. And look what he did. He introduced Winnipeg's first urban Aboriginal policy to close the gap. He championed social and affordable housing. He brought issues to the fore and found solutions that mainstream leaders had either chosen not to embrace or had ignored. And that's not necessarily to fault or denigrate the mainstream. It's just that the people who came before him, who were privileged with mainstream acceptance, who spend their lives in the majority, are going to have a harder time appreciating what it's like for those on the outside looking in. And it's why we need to let others in. As Canada's first openly gay premier and Ontario's first woman to sit in the chair, I've also been able to crank up the dial on files that have been previously mislabeled as either social concerns and therefore not a priority, or so-called women's issues. We've launched an action plan to end sexual violence and harassment. We've formed a working group tasked with closing the gender wage gap. We've budgeted wage increases for publicly funded personal support workers, people who are mostly women, mostly minorities, and who do most of the heavy lifting in our healthcare system. We've reached a landmark accord with First Nations, and we're taking concrete action to rebuild the relationship built on trust, respect, and shared benefit. We've started to look at better support for trans people in our healthcare system. And yeah. And under the leadership of my Deputy Premier, Deb Matthews, who wanted to be here today but couldn't be, she's here in spirit, we've made great strides with our poverty reduction strategy, and we're now embarking on a mission to end chronic homelessness in Ontario. But I'll tell you something. As Canada's first openly gay premier, priorities, all of these priorities are part of my broader priority, which is jobs and growth. That's the top priority, but often when we talk about that top priority, which is a top priority for so many leaders, and I would suggest most of us, we don't talk about those other things. We exclude those from the discussion on jobs and growth. So they're part of my top priority, which is jobs and growth. And that's interesting because I'm often asked the question what it's like being the first premier, the first woman premier, or the first lesbian premier. Usually it's what's it like being the first woman premier. And I can't answer that question because I've never been a male premier. I've never been a straight premier. So I can't actually tell you the difference between being a lesbian premier and a straight male premier. But one way I think that we don't differ is that my straight male predecessors would have shared that top priority of economic growth and jobs for the people in our province. For government, the top priority has to be jobs and economic growth. And a good job that gives you a good outlook on your future is the most important way that we can help people in their lives. And helping people is the reason to get into politics in the first place. And a growing economy that's creating jobs is also the surest path to achieve the equality and empowerment across society that I'm talking about today. But unlike my predecessors, the barriers that I encountered going from being a straight mom in North Toronto, which is a very middle class sort of old suburb of downtown Toronto, so going from that place of privilege to becoming a lesbian politician have actually equipped me with a bit of a heightened understanding of the way our economy intersects with equality and issues of social justice. The imperative of creating growth and jobs for Ontario has been at the center of what I've been tackling since I've been the premier. And it took me to India earlier this month to lead a trade mission. It was a huge success for our economic partnerships, but the experience also provides another insight on why we need pride. LGBTQ2S rights in India are a moving target, as you may know. A few years ago, homosexuality was recriminalized, so the pride movement there remains an overtly political one. In just over a decade, it has spread from a parade in one city to parades and protests and celebrations across India. But shortly after that regressive outlawing of homosexuality, the Supreme Court of India released a groundbreaking ruling extending rights and protection to trans people. About 80% of India is of the Hindu faith, and according to the Hindu beliefs, gender is not binary. So the Indian Supreme Court abolished the binary gender system and created a third gender called Hijra. It includes a range of gender identities and effectively gives trans people the same rights and protections as everyone else. So it can seem like a dichotomy or a contradiction, but I think it's important that we recognize that progress and acceptance don't come from our activism alone. They are rooted in beliefs we may have forgotten, but actually underpin our humanity, and they are there for us to discover and revive and act on. And importantly, they come from an economic empowerment. It's no coincidence that as India's economy has grown and millions have been able to access education and lift themselves out of poverty, activism is taking root and the chorus of voices calling for change is growing louder. As our world grows smaller, I think it also helps to answer the question, why do we need pride? Because we have much more access to what's happening around the world. Well, in India, many of the politicians and business people that I met were aware that Prime Minister Trudeau had appointed a cabinet with gender parity. Most were very excited. Women in particular were encouraged. They want to meet our handsome Prime Minister who has made this move. So there may not be great awareness that Justin Trudeau has been marching in Pride parades all across Canada for years. They may not know that. But this June, when he becomes Canada's first sitting Prime Minister to march in a Pride parade, you can bet that this is going to have an impact on the people here at home, and it is going to be paid attention to around the world. So if I come back from India to London, yes, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's signature initiative is called Smart Cities. He's building 100 modern urban centres for innovation and sustainable growth. Ontario's business expertise in this space is one of the reasons that I took a trade mission to India, and it's one of the reasons that we're so well positioned to grow our partnership and our relationship with India. If you look at London, the Southwest has been through a challenging time. The global recession wiped out thousands of manufacturing jobs. But London is leading the revival, and not by trying to bring back the ghosts of our 20th century economy. You're doing it by parlaying the unique strengths of Southwestern Ontario into the jobs and growth for the 21st century. That is what we have to do. 10,000 highly skilled technology workers now call London home, people leading the way in high-value industries like precision manufacturing, digital creative industries, gaming, where London is emerging as a hub. But for cities like this to be the engine of modern innovation, they need to have the vibrant quality of life that attracts and retains highly skilled people. That is critical. It is not enough to be one thing. We have to embrace that whole cultural shift. It's another reason why we need pride. Pride is no longer just a political symbol. It also symbolizes an inclusive, innovative city of the future. Pride's a key indicator that a place has the cultural diversity and dynamism that attract top talent and create jobs. So I want to thank Andrew and Mayor Brown and everyone involved with Pride London for the support and effort that you've put into making your festival shine alongside your city. I was here at Pride, Martin, how long ago was that? 3 years? 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And I know it's been growing and burgeoning ever since. So kudos to you. And as a government, it's our job to support the great work that's happening here, which is why we've provided support for Pride and Pride-related events across Ontario. And it's why we're making record investments in infrastructure right across the province too. Here in London, that could help build modern transit. I know it's a discussion. I'm not trying to jump over any process. But I know that there's a good conversation happening right now. But it's also the longer horizon that really excites me, and that's why we're studying the high-speed rail corridor from Toronto to Windsor. High-speed rail could be a game changer, cementing London along the Southern Ontario brain chain, so that we don't have to worry about a brain drain to Toronto. We know that we have the talents and skills to create a thriving modern city right here in the heart of the Southwest. And you are that, and you will be that. In fact, investing in people's talent and skills is actually the first pillar in my economic plan. And at Western and at Fanshawe, we're creating that cross-fertilization between universities and colleges, between those post-secondary institutions and the private sector that helps young people to pursue their dreams. So you combine that with high-speed rail that connects to modern transit, pride, and other cultural celebrations of the dynamic business environment that we're fostering, and that's where you see the really bright future for London. And that's where we see the bright future for Ontario. And I don't think that you can separate pride or the impetus behind pride from any of that. I think it is all integrated, because what we're building is a province that grows more equal, more inclusive, and therefore more prosperous every single day. Over the last several decades, the change that all of you have helped create through Pride has been as inspirational as it has been transformational. I wouldn't be standing here today if not for the efforts of so many people who came before. I often say that I always feel that I should have my partner Jane standing beside me, because she was one of those people who was in the trenches. She was at the early Pride celebrations in Toronto. She was one of the people who never used pronouns in her workplace because she couldn't use the real pronoun and had to be closeted. For me, when I came out when I was 37 and I had already lived with all the privilege of being a straight, white, middle-class woman, I was indignant at the thought of being pushed aside, which is very different than if you're coming out when you're a teenager and you're in 1965 trying to find your way. So it's those people, it's the people who went before me who have made it possible for me to be where I am. So I thank them all. But we still have work to do. We still have young people arriving here from Syria who have had to flee because they are coming out. Too many LGBTQ two-spirited youth are homeless, so clearly we have more work to do. Homophobia and violence and discrimination and hatred have not been eradicated, so clearly we have more work to do. And even if we do bring about a world of total equality and safety for gays and lesbians and queers and trans and two-spirited, we'll still need to keep pushing and marching and arguing for inclusion, because in that world, there would still be people within the Pride movement and across society who face systemic barriers because of their race, their gender, because they're poor, or because they're Indigenous. So, why do we need Pride? Because with Pride, we have built a state-of-the-art 21st century vehicle for positive change, for social inclusion and economic empowerment. And now, it's time to hit the open road, to keep making our world a better place. Thank you, all of you, for what you do in your lives and what you do here. Merci. Thank you.
I think I speak for everyone in the room. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know you have a very busy schedule and you work this in. We really, really appreciate it. And just a small token of our appreciation is this is our London building lit up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
We are also very fortunate. Premier Wynne will be around to mix and mingle a little bit before she has to head on to the next function. But before we wrap up, I want to introduce, some of you heard from this gentleman last year. When Premier Wynne was talking about our long history in London and our battles with the mayor, I looked over at Matt and I said, we both made eyes like, it's not me, right? So we've had quite a few mayors since that one. We don't even need to remember her name. But I'm very happy, and we all are very happy to have such great support from our police and from our London City Council and of course our mayor. So please help me in welcoming Mayor Matt Brown.
I'm pretty sure I was in grade 11 when that happened, Andrew. Well, I mean, let me first say thank you so much to Premier Wynne. Thank you so much for being here in London today, and thank you so much for delivering that message. I was surprised, probably just as everyone in this room was surprised, that that was your first keynote address on the topic, and I'm so proud that it occurred here in our community. They were powerful words. And on behalf of the entire City Council, on behalf of the City of London, I'm joined by several councillors today. Councillor Jared Zafman, Councillor Jesse Helmer, and also Deputy Mayor Cassidy. Please accept our thanks for being here. Canada has been the proud home of so many trailblazers and so many pioneers, social, economic, and political. Trailblazers who have inspired us to do more, who have inspired us to bring about positive change, and who inspire us to make a difference. And volunteerism is an essential fabric of our community and of so many communities like ours across Ontario and across Canada. When individuals come together to move our communities forward, our entire society, our entire province, our country moves forward. And together, we create wave after wave after wave of positive change. And Fierté Canada has done an exceptional job in bringing together pride groups from across Canada and some visiting from the United States under one roof, with one single aim: to continue to make our communities even more open, even more inclusive than ever before. And we are so pleased as a community to see a national conference of this caliber take place in our great city of London. Together and today, we're sending a message to our city, to our province, and to our entire country. Today, we are sending a message of hope, of acceptance, and of inclusivity. And today, we are moving forward to build even better communities, an even better province, and an even better Canada. And we're doing it not just for us. We're doing it for our children and our grandchildren as well. Thank you so much.
I also wanted to present you with this on behalf of the board. Thank you so much for all of your support and for coming today and last night as well.
Well, thank you so much, and I will hang this with pride in my office. Thank you.